Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a literal geopolitical thriller. We're talking about a massive, multi-year operation that ultimately brought a dramatic end to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's 37-year rule over Iran. We're going to strip away the noise and look strictly at the data, the wild intelligence pipeline, and the precise minute-by-minute sequence of events that shattered what everyone thought was an impenetrable regime. Okay, let's dive right into this. 5 minutes. That's exactly how long the elevator took just to travel down to Khamenei's deeply buried underground bunker. I mean, think about that for a second. This wasn't just some secure panic room. It was a literal subterranean fortress built to withstand just about anything. And because of that, Khamenei was essentially viewed as an impossible target for any conventional military strike. And that 5-minute elevator ride, well, it sat squarely inside the Pasteur Street compound. Picture this, a massive 30-acre complex right in the beating heart of Tehran. We're talking 620 by 770 meters of heavily fortified walls that protected the regime's command center for 36 years. It was basically a fortress within a city. And it was exactly this specific, highly defensive geography that completely forced Israel's hand, demanding a total shift in their strategy. To really understand that shift, let's look at Act 1, the catalyst. So up until 2018, the strategy was basically just to delay Iran's nuclear progress, right? But then, look at the middle of this timeline. January 31, 2018, the Shurabad heist. Mossad agents actually snuck into a secret warehouse in Tehran, fired up blowtorches to literally cut through iron safes, and walked out with half a ton of highly classified nuclear documents. And what those documents proved was totally undeniable. Just delaying the program? Yeah, that wasn't going to cut it anymore. They just rebuilt. The strategy had to completely pivot from delay to decapitation, cutting off the very head of the regime. Which brings us to Act 2, the invisible net, building the ultimate surveillance web over Tehran. Now, eliminating a head of state who almost never leaves a 30-acre fortress requires intelligence gathering that honestly borders on science fiction. This kicked off an incredibly tense, dark cyber warfare phase led by Mossad and Israel's elite unit 8200. And the infiltration? It was brilliantly layered but utterly ruthless. First, you had human intelligence, actual agents planted right inside the inner circle working as maintenance staff and cleaners. Then came the cyber element. They infected the bodyguards' phones with NSO Pegasus spyware. And get this, Iran actually tried to use internal fiber optic cables to avoid satellite detection, so Israeli intelligence just bypassed it entirely. They hacked into thousands of Chinese-made Tandy and Hikvision CCTV traffic cameras all across Tehran. All of this happening while they were quietly smuggling thousands of explosive drones right into the country, just hiding them away for a rainy day. But here's the catch. How do you actually make sense of hundreds of thousands of gigabytes of raw data? You bring in the AI, specifically the Palantir Maven AI pipeline. This system sucked up all that hacked camera footage, the tapped phone calls, the satellite imagery, all of it. And in just 90 minutes, the software chewed through this overwhelming sea of data to map out a highly predictable pattern of life. It analyzed literally everything. I'm talking down to the exact shift changes of specific guards and even Khamenei's unique walking posture so they could tell him apart from a body double. And the result of all that computing power? A staggering 98.7% accuracy. It handed the intelligence agencies the exact predictive models they needed. And following the October 7, 2023 attacks, this whole operation shifted decisively from the planning phase straight into execution mode. The net was fully cast. Moving on to Act 3, the decapitation strike, executing the impossible operation. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how years of patient, meticulous data collection suddenly boiled down to one moment in late February 2026. The major breakthrough hit on February 23rd. This was the golden intelligence they'd been waiting years for. Ground agents confirmed that Khamenei and 40 of his top commanders, literally the absolute apex of Iranian leadership, were all going to be in one place at the exact same time for a high-level meeting at the Beit-e-Rahari inside the Pasteur Street compound. But, operations like this are incredibly fluid. The original plan, it was supposed to be a nighttime strike, which would have required specialized bunker buster munitions to get down that 5-minute elevator shaft. But on February 27 at exactly 3:38 p.m. Eastern Time, crucial new intelligence dropped. The meeting wasn't going to be at night, and actually, it wasn't even going to be in the bunker. It was moved to the morning, right in the upper above-ground compound. This completely changed the game, altering both the operation's timing and the exact target coordinate. So where did that final piece of the puzzle actually come from? The U.S. Central Intelligence Agency.
The CIA handed over what they called high-fidelity intelligence regarding Khamenei's exact positioning directly to Israel. And upon receiving this incredibly precise tracking data, U.S. President Donald Trump gave the official green light to proceed with the joint operation.
All right, here is the minute-by-minute tick-tock of February 28th. At 7:30 a.m., Israeli F-35s and U.S. fighter jets launch. As they're speeding toward Tehran, remember those thousands of drones smuggled into Iran years ago? Well, they're suddenly activated. In a massive, synchronized wave, they kamikaze straight into Iran's S-300 and Bavar 373 air defense batteries, completely blinding the country's radar network. The skies are suddenly wide open, and by 9:40 a.m., the jets arrive perfectly on target. Over 30. That is the number of Blue Sparrow missiles dropped over the compound. These munitions actually exit the atmosphere, angle straight down at 90 degrees, and strike at hypersonic speeds. At exactly 9:40 a.m., they hit the precise coordinates of that meeting room. Khamenei and his top military leadership are killed instantly. And that brings us to Act 4, Succession and Aftermath, the fallout of a shattered regime. When you suddenly remove the keystone of a 37-year-old regime, the geopolitical fallout is immediate, it's chaotic, and it's profound. The global response was intensely polarized. On one hand, you saw massive, joyous celebrations erupting in the streets of Tehran and across the Iranian diaspora, with people really hoping this was the end of the Islamic Republic. But simultaneously, the red flag of revenge was raised over mosques. Mourners gathered in fierce anger, and the surviving elements of the regime instantly vowed immediate and devastating retaliation. Right in the middle of this chaos, literally with oil depots burning in the background in Tehran, the regime scrambled to maintain some kind of stability. The responsibility fell to the Assembly of Experts, which is this 88-member clerical body strictly tasked with appointing the supreme leader. Acting without any hesitation on March 8, 2026, they moved incredibly fast to fill that massive power vacuum. And their choice? 56-year-old Mossad Khamenei, the slain leader's son. Now, this is a fascinating development. Mossad is a highly secretive cleric. He's actually never held public office, yet he wields an immense amount of behind-the-scenes power. Strongly backed by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, his appointment marks a really controversial shift toward a hereditary succession, which is huge considering this is a republic originally founded by overthrowing a monarchy. As you can imagine, the international pushback was immediate. U.S. President Donald Trump released a statement condemning the secession, bluntly warning that Mujtaba is not going to last long. This swift condemnation essentially set the stage for severely escalated conflict, which was met immediately by defiance and vows of continued resistance from the brand new leadership in Tehran. And this brilliantly illustrates the immediate global consequence: huge economic shockwaves. Oil prices surged past $100 a barrel almost overnight. With regional infrastructure like Gulf desalination plants and Saudi oil fields being actively targeted in the crossfire, the economic shockwaves of this single assassination cascaded rapidly through the entire global economy. So the crucial point we're left with is this: does the decapitation of Ali Khamenei mark the long-awaited end of the Islamic Republic? Or is it just the beginning of a far more destructive regional war? This actually brings us to the core philosophy of Project Metacognition. We have to think deeply about how we process systemic collapse. In our hyper-connected world, removing a single node doesn't just end a regime. It permanently alters the entire global framework. It's a dark, wildly uncertain future, and the answer is going to reshape the world as we know it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.